This is TPNN, the People's News Network.
I want to welcome everybody tonight. I'm Aaron Chapman, President of Farm Bureau here in Randolph County. Good to see everybody. I'll ask if you will stand. We'll start this evening off with the pledge. Join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, we've got a timekeeper right up front here, Ed. He's going to take care of that. So when he flags you down, go ahead and pass it on. We ask everybody to be respectful of each other. And I'm going to turn things over to Jeff Kenny. He's the MC here tonight. We've got a few questions. Keep everything. We are Farm Bureau, the ones that are putting this on. So this is going to be agricultural driven. So just be prepared to expect that from the questions. So thank you all for coming.
Okay. I'll be honest. I've got a voice for silent movies, so please bear with me. So candidates tonight, Claudia was kind enough to present a very long list of people. So I'll just run down through the list before we get to everybody, and then we'll get to the meat and bones of this. For U.S. Senate, Thomas M. McDermott is running as a Democrat. James M. Seniak as a Libertarian, Todd Young as a Republican, Thomas Baer as a write-in, Philip Beachy as a write-in. I will never know to get this right, so I apologize to Hanifa Khalik as a write-in. David Storr, Denny Nietenbarger, and Antonio Xavier Alvarez are all write-ins for the U.S. Senate, none of which are here tonight. Secretary of State, Destiny Wells is running as a Democrat, Diego Morales as a Republican, Jeffrey Maurer as a Libertarian, and he has a representative, Christopher Bilbrey, here who will have a prepared statement, along with Andrew Straw and David Woodard for write-ins. Mr. Bilbrey, if you would come up to the stand and read your prepared statement.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Bilbrey, and I'm here on behalf of Jeff Maurer, the Libertarian candidate for Indiana Secretary of State. Jeff regrets not being able to be here this evening, but he's asked me to share his words with you. Jeff says that he's running for Indiana Secretary of State because we need to act now to strengthen our elections. A good election is one in which losers accept the outcome not because they like the results, but because they trust the process. In 2016 and 2020, two different parties each claimed that the other stole the election. We've lost too much trust in elections. We need to rebuild that trust with common sense solutions like receipts and audits. When was the last time that you bought something, but the seller refused to give you a receipt? That would be pretty suspicious. Jeff Maurer is the only candidate on your ballot who wants to give you a printed receipt for your vote so you can track it just like a package, which would allow you to see that it's been received, counted, and audited. Speaking of auditing, in the last election, 60% or more than half of all votes cast had no paper backup whatsoever, and only 5 out of all 92 counties in Indiana were audited. And there was not random audits, nor were those final reports ever published. It's like it's a big secret. Jeff wants you to get an independent random audit of all 92 counties before the elections are certified. It's no secret also how to help Hoosier entrepreneurs and small businesses grow. We must get government out of the way. Make it easy to get help on weekends and give them a designated account representative. As you get ready to vote, Jeff Maurer asks that you listen for solutions, listen for specific actions that we can take today to give us a better tomorrow. I will stay until after the event, and I'll be happy to speak with any of you and answer any questions that you may have, or you can always ask Jeff directly by calling or texting 317-721-6438, or visit maurerforindiana.com. That's MAURERFOR Indiana.com. Thank you.
All right, for auditor estate, the people on the ballot are Zanai Brooks as a Democrat, John Andrew Schick as a Libertarian, and Tara Klutz as a Republican, none of which are here. Treasurer of State, Jessica McClellan as a Democrat, and Daniel Ellen as a Republican. The local offices, which are running unopposed, Laura Martin, stand up so I can see you. There you are. So Laura's back there if anyone wants. I don't know if her cookie recipes are real good or not, but she might have some. Jane Grove is back there. She's running as county recorder. County treasurer is Brenda Tharp. Aaron Messersmith is running for county sheriff as a Democrat. He's not here. Art Moisner is a current sheriff running for re-election, and he sends regrets. He's in a family function with his son, and I believe they're having the Lilly Scholarship started it, and his son is qualified for that, so that's pretty impressive. George Castor is running for assessor. He's not here. County Commissioner Gary Friend, I saw him. There he is. Thomas Kearns is running District 1. He's not here. Mike Stein for District 2 is here. Todd Holliday for District 3 is not here. Missy Williams for District 4 is here. And then my timekeeper and lovely assistant, lovely is maybe not the right word, but Ed likes to be called lovely from time to time, and Claudia is not doing that. He is our current surveyor, and he's the timekeeper for tonight. So the rest of the folks will have a 3-minute opening statement for each of them.
Yes.
And then
You have a letter from Senator Deb.
you gotta read all that? All right, if anybody wants to go get cookies, it's gonna take a while, it's a whole page.
Take less than 3 minutes.
I read slowly. So Todd Young from the U.S. Senate sent us a letter, Randolph County Farm Bureau and guest. I'm writing to ask for your support for re-election to the U.S. Senate in 2022. When you entrusted me with the honor of serving you 5 years ago, I swore an oath to defend the Constitution. I also pledged to you that I would work on behalf of all Hoosiers to deliver conservative results. I believe I have done so. Republican leadership delivered for all Americans. We reformed the tax code, built a record economy, and confirmed hundreds of judges, including confirming Indiana's own Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. We also delivered for rural Hoosiers and the farmers who are the backbone of our state's vital agriculture economy. We opened new markets, reduced uncertainty, and expanded vital services and infrastructure, including investing in high-speed rural broadband and making telehealth available for more Hoosiers than ever before. And just last month, my CHIPS Act was signed into law. This legislation puts America on offense against the Chinese Communist Party and ensures we don't fall behind China in technological innovation by investing in making semiconductors at home, including right here in Indiana. Despite this progress, I think we can agree it's time for a change in Washington. We can't ignore the out-of-control spending, tax increases, and crippling inflation that is the direct result of the Biden administration's policies. To turn our country around, we need a change in leadership. Friends, with your help, we're going to get our country back on track. At the end of the day, I'm running to unleash what I've been calling Hoosiers imprisoned like me, to set the unlimited potential we all share free. It's the idea at the heart of the American dream that free people in a free nation have unlimited possibilities. This is my vision for where our country should be headed. I hope I have the honor of earning your support and vote for re-election to the United States Senate this November. Your friend in service, Todd Young. So that is a letter that Claudia did not want to read. She made me read. Thank you so much, Claudia. All right. So we have, is there a representative from Jim Banks here this evening? Do you have a statement that you would like to read from him before an opening statement?
Absolutely.
The mic is yours. You just have to turn. You got it.
Thank you very much. My name is Landon Porter. I'm with Congressman Jim Banks' team. Congressman regrets he can't be here tonight. They have votes going on this week. But I'm going to come up and give just a little bit of overview of him. I know this is a new county for our area, so just wanted to give a quick little background. And then I don't know if we're doing questions later, but I'll be hanging around if there's any questions or anything I can help anyone with. Certainly happy to do so. Congressman served in county council for a few years before being elected to the state senate in 2010. He's originally from Columbia City, Indiana. That's in Whitley County, and spent many years there. So he was on the Whitley County Council, then was elected to the state senate, where he served 6 years. And in that time, he served as a Navy Reserve officer, and he actually deployed to Afghanistan for 2 years. Took a leave of absence from the state senate, went over there and served. And then upon his return from Afghanistan is when he ran for Congress in 2016. And so he's been elected since then. He serves on the Armed Services Committee, Veteran Affairs Committee, and then the Education and Labor Committee. I want to thank Farm Bureau for inviting us to participate. We know the ag industry is extremely important to us. One thing he did when he first got into Congress was fighting to repeal the quotas rule. And something he's got, I know that recently the administration has reversed that, and it's something we're going to keep our eyes on. And we're also appreciating feedback from you guys as we go into this next year with the Farm Bill. And so he also serves on the Republican Study Committee, which is the largest conservative caucus in Congress. It's with over 200 members. And so we're really looking forward to representing Randolph County. Kind of the rough outline of it is if you're anywhere north of 32 in Randolph County, you're being our new district. And then the lines kind of loop around Winchester, goes over, catches Union City, got farmland, Parker, and so mainly just that northern half. And like I said, thank you for having us here. We appreciate our relationship with Farm Bureau and many counties across the district. I'm looking forward to doing that here in Randolph County. So again, my name is Landon Porter, and I'll be around for any questions and hanging out here afterwards. Looking forward to meeting all of you. So thank you.
All right, so this would be a good time to bring up Nathan Gotch, who is here. He is also running for U.S. 3rd District, everything north of 32, against Mr. Banks. And Gary Snyder is the Democrat who is not here. Mr. Gotch is an independent. And if you would like to come over and give your 3 minutes, more or less, my lovely timekeeper.
I'm going to use the stage so everybody can see me. I never thought I'd run for Congress. My grandmother grew up on a small turkey farm in Noble County. My grandfather's family lost everything in the Depression and had to survive in a tiny apartment in Fort Wayne. My parents devoted their lives to serving the people of their community and set an example that I tried to follow. From my very first job washing cars in DeKalb County, I learned about hard work and that no one was better or worse than anyone else. I've been a writer and an educator trying to improve the mental and physical health of our community. And encourage our kids to believe in themselves and dream big. But right now, their future, our future, isn't as bright as it should be. No matter where you're at on the political spectrum, we can all agree on one thing. Our country's in chaos. And it seems like there's two sets of rules in this country. One for the people with access to power, and one for the rest of us. It's time to step up and say, this isn't okay. To focus on solving our problems, not trying to use them against the other side of the next election. We need to fight inflation by doing everything we can to increase the supply side of the economy. Ban members of Congress from buying and selling stock in the very companies they oversee. That's something that the current incumbent actually opposes. We need to push for smarter energy policies that bring gas prices down. And we need to decouple health coverage from employment so that people have the same freedom to start a business that my parents and grandparents did. I know it can seem like it's hard to have hope right now, but we've been through even harder times than this, and we've gotten through them, thanks to committed leaders who put our country before their own personal gain. Now, people ask me, can an independent actually win this race? I told them that's up to you. But if an independent can become mayor of the second largest city in Northeast Indiana, that's Huntington, it's Dan Quayle's hometown, why can't an independent win Dan Quayle's former seat in Congress? That's why I'm running, and that's why I appreciate your support on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Worth is running as a Democrat for U.S. Representative District 6, which is everything south of 32, so she gets the wrong side of the tracks where I'm at. And she's running against Greg Pence. So here's your 3-minute opening.
Thank you, and thank you to Farm Bureau for hosting this. I'll not go up on the stage, I think you can see me. So I'm just a normal person. I am a teacher, I am a scientist. Conservation is in my heart because I am a scientist and a biologist. I ended up having to take a teaching job because, first of all, we had a shortage of science teachers when I was a scientist, and I needed a job that had health care. And so I am with you on decoupling health care from jobs. That is one of the things that I truly believe in. So I'm also a small business person, and that's how I ended up being a teacher, because in an environmental catastrophe that we had in 2008, my husband and I lost everything we worked for the 16 years previous, with 2 kids in school. So how am I running for Congress? It's my kids, my students. My students in my classroom were the ones that pushed me and said, hey, what's going on? How can we stop this? How can we help this? Those same kids are struggling right now to make ends meet. And they won't even have some of the chances that I had as a young person in the 90s because of some of the policy decisions we've made. So the Department of Energy selected me to go to Washington, D.C. for a year after me claiming my whole life that I wasn't political. And what I found there was that good, well-written policy that involves stakeholders and involves collaboration and communication is a way that we can solve problems and make all of our lives better. And I take that to heart. I don't do this for me. I do this for everyone that needs a hand. From time to time, we're all a community. We all need a hand. And so that's why I'm running for Congress. On November 8th, I would appreciate your vote. I am committed to collaboration and involving stakeholders in every decision that affects people in the 6th district, which is south of State Route 32.
If you just want to stay up here. Yes, and if you want to come back up. I have 2 questions, and since you are both running for U.S. House of Representatives, I'll ask the same 2 questions of both of you. You want question 1 or 2? You get to go first. Ladies first.
2.
Oh, I would have picked that one. You can. I don't know that I want to do that. He looks kind of formidable with that tie and that flag.
I'm a teacher, so.
Yeah, you're both teachers, and I don't listen well. That's my wife, she's back there. Okay, so your question, and then we'll ask the same thing of Mr. Nathan. The Securities Exchange Commission is proposing Scope 3 emissions reporting. I don't know if you're familiar with Scope 3 emissions or not, but it's really kind of scary for the agricultural community. Scope 3 emissions are those emissions that are a result of activities from assets not owned or controlled by the reporting organization, but organizations in its value chain. So if we take cardinal ethanol out here, which processes corn, turns it into ethanol, an example of those emissions are everything that the farmers would do: planting, harvesting, spraying, hauling with trucks, getting your seed. And the proposal is that these organizations have to track those carbon emissions all the way back to the source. What would your position be on this, and why? And you both get the same question, so you get to go first.
So anything that affects our air, land, or water quality, to me as a biologist, is incredibly important. We have one of the worst air qualities in Indiana. We have a very low soil quality and water quality as well. So when we look at long-term solutions, I think these tracking systems are a good idea. But I think there should be some provisions, and this is where I would be working with stakeholders to find the best ways and the most cost-effective ways to do this for the farming and the agricultural community. I think in the long run, we need to be looking down the road. In the short run, we do need to be looking at costs and time, those kinds of things. But I do think that tracking these emissions is valuable. We also, and one of the things I taught in high school was environmental science. And in environmental science classes, we worked with our local agricultural groups, and we looked at different kinds of new technology in agriculture. So I think a shifting of a mindset and a shifting of a frame of thinking about those things may be what is needed also.
Can we just be frank here? Does it really matter what a congressman's position is when lobbyists and big donors to a certain party put a lot of pressure on them and say, you know what, you're going to vote this way, right? Now look, I'm going to tell you what my position is on that, but I think it's important that we acknowledge what's actually going on these things in Washington. You know, there's a farm bill that's coming up next year. Who do you think is talking to Landon's boss right now about it? It's not the people in this room, because he's not here, right? So is it, I don't know, Warren Buffett's been buying a lot of farmland all over this country. You think he can afford somebody to go to Washington and lobby for that bill? I think he probably can, right? So I just want to acknowledge the reality that we're in. When we have these individual specific issues, if you don't have a representative who has been talking to farmers on the ground here to find out, okay, how is this actually going to affect you, right? And also, why do we need to even pay attention to these emissions, right? There's got to be a reason for that. What is the harm that it's causing? And then how do we balance those things? So for me, that's the process, right? That's the situation where you have to go through, understand what's causing that, and then what are the ramifications. And so for me, I don't want to do anything that's going to make it harder for people to farm. It's hard enough, right? My best friend growing up lived on a dairy farm, and I used to go over there on Friday nights, and we couldn't go out to Pizza Hut on Friday night until his dad milked every single cow that was there, right? Now, I was a city boy, all right? That didn't make any sense to me. And then one day, his dad explained, look, if you want to have pizza, I need to work. And the way that we make money in this family is by milking these cows. And this is something that I didn't understand until I was there, right? Until he talked to me about it, until he explained it to me. Now here's the end of that story. That farm doesn't exist anymore. It's a housing addition. And the reason is because it's too hard for so many people to be able to continue these family farms. And so my best friend, who inherited that farm, he has a job in the city, and they sell pumpkins on the weekends at what used to be a small slice of that farm. And so for me, that is what I think about when you ask a question like that. What's really going on behind the scenes, and are the people in Congress listening to the folks that that's going to impact?
You're going to love the next question then, because it's about farming too. All right. What is your position on the waters of the U.S. Reverting back to the 2015 revision, and what facts lead you to that position?
The waters reverting back to the 2015 position. Okay, so you guys are going to find out that I am not an expert in farming issues, right? That's why I came here. I'm not going to pretend that I know all the ins and outs of that, right? On the way down here, I was talking to Jesse on our campaign team about regenerative agriculture and the things that I'm concerned about in terms of making sure that we have crop insurance that's going to be enough in this next farm bill, and also as we're transitioning, hopefully, to things that are making it so that people aren't losing so much topsoil, right? That transition is being subsidized by the federal government, because we're going to be asking people to change the way that they farm, right? We need to support them along that way. So those are the things that I have been reading about and studying about. You're going to have to tell me exactly what that is, because I'm not going to stand up here and pretend to know the details of that exact issue. Do you want to take this part of it?
So, play jump rope here. So I'm not entirely sure what you mean by reverting back to the 2015, if it is an EPA related?
So the 2015.
Thank you.
I didn't know I was on trial. So the 2015 revision of the waters of the U.S. means basically the government wanted to take charge of any land holding water. That could be as small as a puddle that's been there for 3 months in your yard because it hasn't quit raining. It's not only navigable waterways, which I think is kind of what the initial term was, if it's a navigable waterway. Now that navigable does not necessarily mean an aircraft carrier going down the creek, but it also means that it's not, your rubber ducky floating down the pond either. So it seems a vast overreach of power to try to take, well, we're going to claim this as a wetland. Well, maybe this year it was, in the last 10 years it was drought. And now the Biden administration wants to take that back to those earlier laws or earlier rules, which were not near as common sense.
Well, yeah, so I think it's pretty obvious that anybody should be against this. And, for me, if something like that comes up, the question is, okay, what's at the root of this, right? What is the problem that they're trying to solve? And how can we figure out a way to address that without, like you said, having government overreach? And I'm really big on Congress and the federal government providing funding for things, but giving the power to the people at the local level. And as long as there's transparency and accountability, I think the people here in Randolph County can solve those problems on their own. They might need some federal funding and some resources to be able to do that, but I am certainly not in favor of what you described.
So that's a new kind of piece that I'm not familiar with. I am a biologist. I am a working practicing biologist. I am an ecologist. So when I look at issues like that, I look at what's behind it. What are the changes that we've seen in our climate here that may be driving looking at water and resources more closely? I spent last summer out in California doing some stuff for family, and we have water here. They don't have water there. So if they're looking at maybe reclassifying wetlands, that's kind of what I'm getting from it.
Not so much that, it's just taking control.
Okay, and I'm not for that. Again, I think people know best what they need to do with their own land. But I am for, if we have issues with land and wetlands, to protect those, because it's the way our ecosystem works. So in that way, but I would want to sit down and work with people and look at these laws and see exactly what they say, and work with stakeholders on that, with people who own the land.
Jeff, thank you for that question. I learned something.
$20 is fine.
Yeah, well, I don't think legally I'm allowed to pay. I have to check with the FEC on that, but again, more government regulation, right?
All right, so you two each have an opportunity for 2-minute closing if you'd like.
Do you want to start, or you want me to go? Okay, what can we talk about? Well, look, I'm here because I care about the people of Randolph County. This isn't the first time that I've been here. I came down to Winchester in August for a Meet the Candidate event. I talked to the mayor of Winchester, and I've been to all 13 counties in our district. The incumbent, and that's who Landon is here representing, hasn't done a town hall since 2019, and we were scheduled to have a debate on the 27th of October. The CBS station in Fort Wayne was putting that on. Congressman Banks has not said that he is going to participate in that, and the deadline to do that is tomorrow. So since Landon's here, I'm wondering if he knows, is Congressman Banks going to participate in that debate? Okay, so you're still considering that. All right, so they asked us this at the end of August, so he's had a long time to think about it. I think you probably can read from Landon's answer what the decision is going to be tomorrow, but I hope that it's not what I expect it to be, because I think the voters here in Randolph County and all over the 3rd District deserve a chance to hear all 3 of the candidates in this race face the tough questions that people have. And I thank you all for coming out tonight. And like I said again, I hope to have your support. If you are north of 32 or in the 3rd District, first of all, welcome. As Landon mentioned, you've been redistricted into the 3rd District. And for those of you south, I hope you vote the way your heart tells you to. Thanks.
So I told you that I'm a biologist, I'm an ecologist, I was a teacher. I also did work on Capitol Hill, and I've been on both sides of it. I've been the person coming in asking for things. I've been the person on the other side of the table taking the meeting, trying to work out issues and what's best for the constituents of the district. And I take that very seriously, just as seriously as I took teaching students. Solving problems is one of the things that I think we can do together, and it is something I think we have lost, the ability to sit at a table and hash things out and come to an agreement that works for people. That is what I am about. That's what I did in my classroom. That's what I did when I was on Capitol Hill, and that's what I want to do for you when I'm elected. So my current representative also does not hold town halls or meetings, and we have asked and begged, and they have not responded to anything. So I will show up, I will work things out and hash things out for you, and I'm willing to learn, because there is no one that can know all of this, and there's all kinds of things that I have no idea, but I am willing to learn.
All right, so now that that part's gone through, we have representatives on the ballot for State Senate District 26. We have Melanie Wright on the Democrat side and Scott Alexander on the Republican side. You want to stand up? And if you guys want to come up here, basically, I'm not really smart at this stuff, so I have 3 questions for 4 people who are all running for state office. The other 2 are John Bartlett, who is also a Democrat for State Rep 33, and Jamie Prescott, who's the incumbent Republican in State District 33. You can all play nice, you can all stand together. You'll each get a 3-minute opening statement. As So I don't care who goes first. I guess.
All right.
You each get 3 minutes as an opening statement.
Okay. I'm Scott Alexander, running for State Senate District 26. First of all, I want to thank Indiana Farm Bureau for the endorsement in this district. Also want to let you know that my wife, Valerie, is out here in the audience. My mom, Julie, is out here, and my son, Andrew, is somewhere, always in the back over there. He's my campaign manager. I'm actually on county council. Been on county council for the last 10 years over in Delaware County. Been council president for the last 3. We've gotten things turned around financially in Delaware County. My day job is I own a real estate appraisal company in Muncie. Been in business for 35 years over there. And of course, we're very busy. So my wife also owns a catering company. So it's keeping us hopping to add running for state senate to the list of things that we already do. But we've been doing it well. The reception is very good at the doors. We've been all over the district multiple times, and I look forward to serving you as your next state senator.
Hey there, my name is Melanie Bright, and I am running for State Senate for District 26. I am currently a teacher at Delville Community Schools. I teach K-6 music. I've had the opportunity to teach in 3 different states and 5 different school corporations, and I pursued a Bachelor of Science degree in music education at Ball State, and then went on to pursue curriculum instruction as a master's degree at Anderson University. Loved it so much that I stayed on and received an administrative license, and then decided to go into politics. I figure. And the reason being is because at the same time in 2011, there was state legislation passed that tied student test scores to teacher evaluations, and also it limited collective bargaining to wage and wage-related benefits, which has really stifled Indiana and the earning potential for teachers. So during that time, I decided, I'm just going to run for state representative. Didn't know how to do that, didn't know that there were precinct committeemen or county chairs. But I had always been a very dedicated voter, and actually a very dedicated conservative voter, I might add, until I started following where the votes were going on education, and it was shocking. And I thought, I have to run to try to beat that back and tell the story of public education. So right now, with what we are doing, we are failing our children miserably. When we had to take on a global pandemic, and we were on the front lines on that, we were facing things before there was even a vaccine around to just have the choice to do that. Now we have kids who are coming back to school, some who have had a virtual or a mixed hybrid of virtual and in person, some who have come back in person who have been quarantined, and they're behind in their learning. And their needs for mental and social help is much more than what I've ever seen in my teaching career. And people are at a brink on this. So when the legislation moved through that really was going to limit how we could do schools, it is so micromanaging. So I always get the question, like, you're a Democrat and you're saying local control. Yes, I'm saying local control because we are so micromanaged. We can hardly breathe without a directive from the state legislature. It's ridiculous. We should be able to have people who are making those decisions as superintendents in their counties, as instructional leaders, and as principals in their buildings, and teacher leaders in their profession. Not always run on these 3 tenets. I'm a big advocate for working families. I believe in local control for education. I also believe in partnering with local government to make our communities stronger. But here's something I believe in as serving as a state representative from 2014 to 2020. I show up. And I think it's important to show up. Is that my time?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is John Bartlett. I'm running for the State House, District 33. I live up in Blackford County on the 40-acre farm that my grandparents bought 70 years ago this year. I grew up, however, right here in Randolph County. I grew up in the northwest corner, right next to Albany. I lived about 1.5 miles from Albany. I had a Ridgeville address, a red key phone. I went to Monroe Central School, where I graduated as salutatorian in my class. So that was, tomorrow night's the homecoming at Monroe Central, so you better believe I'm going to be there. So I am running, I live on the farm with my wife Maggie, who's over here, and I have 4 grown children, one of whom is here, Ben's here. And Maggie is a former teacher and Department of Child Services employee. My parents up here, they still live on 28. My father was a General Motors employee for 35 years. My mom was a teacher at DeSoto and Albany Elementaries for 29 years. We also were small family farmers. The primary farm was our 40 acres up there, but we farmed a lot. I would love to be able to go back and tell you how many bales of hay I put up every summer. I put up a lot of hay. We had cattle, and so we farmed with small tractors. By the way, tractors should be green. Yes. That's my opinion on that. And I'm descended from the pioneers of this area. So I have pioneers going back from northern Randolph County, southern Randolph County, the Quakers in southern Randolph County, and the area between Albany and DeSoto, dating all the way back into the 1830s. So I have deep roots, probably related to some of you in some form or fashion if you're from Randolph County. So going way, way back. I went to IU. I majored in political science and history. And I now work for an IT company that I've been with for, or I work for a major security company. I work in the IT department. I handle remote support for 25 offices coast to coast. And I've been there for 28 years. And I volunteer a lot. Sometimes people say I volunteer too much, but I've been, well, like tomorrow if you come out to the Second Harvest tailgate at the park, I'll be there throwing food into people's trunks. I decided to throw my hat in the ring because as I travel around the district, I see the decay of our communities and I want to help solve that.
Good evening, everyone. I think most of y'all know me, but for those of you that don't, I'm J.D. Prescott, your state representative for House District 33. So I currently serve all of Randolph, Jay, and a third of Delaware counties, running for re-election in the new House District 33, which consists of all of Randolph, Blackford, 2/3 of Jay, 1/3 of Delaware, and a township in Henry County. So I know it kind of sounds like a large mix, but it's actually a very squared off district if you look at it in a map compared. So it's a very large land area wise rural ag based district. I grew up just here in Randolph County, out on the family farm, married my wife Brooke, who's here with us tonight. We also have 2 boys, Grayson and Grant, who are 6 and 3. They are actually Brooke's parents this evening, believe it or not. They thought it'd be more fun to play with Grammy and Popsy than would be coming out to a Canada for them. So as soon as we're finished up here, we're going to go pick up the boys and get them to bed for school, or for Grace for school in the morning. Just a little bit about myself, though, other than the family aspect. I really just want to make sure that I continue to promote our Christian conservative values for our district, limited government principles, always making sure that I'm easily accessible, give my cell phone number out. Anybody that wants my cell phone number can have it. I'm usually very accessible. Anybody that wants to get a hold of me. Work well with our local county officials on various issues. Anytime there's an issue that comes up, they're always working with us. The constituent service is one of our top priorities, making sure that as issues arise, we're ready to service your needs as quick as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn this over. I'm going to burn up Ed's time, and let's just get to questions.
All right, like I told Joe and Claudia could tell you, I'm not real smart. I only came up with 3 questions and we have 4 people. So we drew straws. And I'm not sure if Melanie won or lost because she doesn't get to be the first one on the question. Since you're standing closest to me, I have 3 questions. Do you want 1, 2, or 3? Okay. And I did want to comment on John. I'm so glad there's an Oliver fan in the house. When you said tractors are green, I know you meant Olivers.
Green and white or green and red are okay.
Those are Olivers. Or Rumleys, take your pick. All right. What legislation would you write in order to address the continued lack of rural high-speed internet accessibility? And I speak from a personal spot with this as I was trying to research some of these questions the other night at my kitchen table. In southern Randolph County, the only thing that would come in was Facebook because they don't use any bandwidth. Nothing else would come across because our phones do not have enough internet ability. We can't get a landline to have anything in our area. We're too far away from everything. We have no line of sight to towers. We know that there's plenty of spots in this county, and there are other rural areas like us, and this is one of the Farm Bureau issues. Rural Indiana is falling behind as far as kids going to school on virtual days. You can't log in right. I've got a 5th grader. It's a struggle at times. So what would you do personally? What is your plan to address this? You will have 3 minutes, and everyone down the line gets 2 minutes, and then you get 2 minutes at the end to argue with them if you like. Okay. All right. Ed, 3 minutes on the clock, please.
Well, if COVID taught us anything, it taught us that we weren't ready out, especially out in the counties. We got a lot of issues with kids not being able to get access to internet, working from home, people from different companies working at, trying to work at home. We just didn't have what we needed there infrastructure-wise. So, and I think both counties, Delaware and Randolph County, are addressing those shortfalls. I know we just last week appropriated money from the ARP funds to leverage against providing, getting started on providing better micro fibers out into, or fiber optics, I guess, out into the county. So we've already begun. I think we're going to need to do more. But I know the state has made a initiative to try and help leverage that money too as well. So we've identified the need. Now it's going to take a lot of money to solve that problem. So it's going to, this isn't something we're going to be able to get to right away, but it's a need we've identified that we're going to need to continue to move forward and start to get people access that are out in the county. There's a lot of people still working from home or trying to work from home that have these issues. We had situations, I know, in our county where kids had to move locations. I know there's a couple times where we had to, our daughter had to go into the office to be able to use the internet a couple of different times where we were down. So.
Thank you for the question. Yes, COVID did expose a lot of our needs for rural broadband, and actually a couple of years prior to that, we actually passed a standing loan bill to expand that in the state legislature, and I supported that bill wholeheartedly. So how does that look going into the rural areas? Well, in the meantime, we might have to use things like our school buildings as some of the infrastructure to be able to put some of those, some sort of makeshift system that'll make do until we can have the money to build the towers. So why not look at where our community gathers more in our small rural communities? Also, why not see if we can up the ability to have the hot spots in areas? I know when I served as a state representative over in Alexandria, they acquired a lot of hot spots in their library, in their public library, and they check those out quite regularly for the school children to use. I did have a lot of superintendents frustrated that everybody had to gather around McDonald's or Starbucks to try to get Wi-Fi or sit in their school parking lot. So why not try to expand that from the school until we can get the infrastructure in place within the community? So we have a short-term plan and a long-term plan. Also, I want to say, after writing many a piece of farm equipment, because I am from a farm and I've taken many farm tours in this area, a lot of the farm equipment now is all based on Wi-Fi, so that you can see everything you possibly need, from moisture yield, crop yield, to everything except where those rocks are in the field. So have the opportunity to ride some of those and be able to see what you guys need as well. And quite honestly, if we want to keep those family farms in place, we're going to have to provide that to young families to bring them back to the farm so that they can have that, not only to run their equipment, but also to have a lifestyle that we've come to expect in this day and age. Thank you.
So, as I told you in my opening, I work in IT and I handle remote support for 25 offices. So at the beginning of COVID, we had to make it so that about 3,000 employees could suddenly work from home. And we did that really quickly because of the expertise we have with remote support. And now that COVID is leaving us, or we hope it's leaving us, we have a unique opportunity out here in the rural areas in that we are making it so that people are working from home permanently. We are reclaiming buildings so that we don't have to have such big buildings and building space, because people are working from home. I work with plenty of people from this district in my company, and they're all located in Indianapolis. And you know what? They could work from the cornfields just as easily as they could from the cul-de-sacs if we bring rural broadband that is reliable out here. And when I mentioned there at the very end that the decay that I see in our communities, it's real. And the problem is that too many people have moved away. Most of our population, or all the counties in here, we've lost 15 to 25% of our population in these counties since 1980, because we don't have the jobs to sustain the population used to have. That affects our schools closing, that affects our banks, our grocery stores, that affects all of our small businesses in all of our little towns. That's why the decay is here. We could rebuild our population and start the necessary demand for those small towns to get back their stores and rebuild their economies if we sink money into rural broadband internet. And we're sitting on a $5 billion surplus with no plans to use it. Let's use some of it and invest in ourselves and build some broadband.
Thank you for the question, Jeff. This has actually been a passion of mine since I've been in the General Assembly. During the last budget cycle, we actually invested $250 million into broadband. The original request from Governor Holcomb started off as $100 million, and that was one of the changes that I was advocating for while I was serving on the Ways and Means Committee, was that upping that amount to a higher amount as much as we could get towards broadband in the session. I've also worked on legislation to expand broadband through the iLight network, which is a fiber optic network that connects our public universities around the state, so it connects our universities around the state. There is a lot of untapped potential through that network where we can branch off of and continue to expand broadband through that iLight network that we already have as existing infrastructure. So if we would be able to open up a portion of that, we have to also monitor that. You can't do all of it because we don't want to jeopardize the amount of broadband width that we need for government services or for the universities, but we could take a portion of that and send that off to make it available to the private sector. When we are looking at our funding opportunities and grant opportunities in the upcoming budget cycle, I also think we need to look at future technology that really technology that's becoming more readily available. As you look at the current law, it does not allow for extraterrestrial use of those funds. What I mean by that is satellite internet. And so if you look, Elon Musk system, the Starlink, that's technically a satellite system, even though it's low orbit. So we could possibly look at opening those funds up for the initial infrastructure for the individual or the constituent that is applying for, make a grant process in that regards to get that to the resident that's applying for broadband use. So those are just a couple aspects that we can do, but appreciate your support.
Well, I was going to tell a story about my wife, but no, okay, all right. I'll tell you later.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the middle of that. Okay. Mr. John, you get to go next, since you're next in line and Melanie won. Would you like question 2 or 3?
Let's go A, Gene.
Well, we did 1. And your Oliver does not need auto steer. All right, so here we go. I will pick for you. As the state looks at repealing personal property taxes, where do you propose that the replacement funding would come for those monies, and how will it impact rural communities and rural taxes?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm not positive of the numbers of where personal property taxes falls into our budget surplus. I do know that right now, if we're looking at that budget surplus, the $200 refund that we got back only amounted to, if you divide that $200 into the $2 billion that it cut off the budget surplus, which was up to 7, it's like $100 per person per $1 billion, and we're sitting at $5 billion right now. So if you gave everybody that back, that would be a $500 check. We'll divide 500 by that a weekly amount. It's only $10 a week, less than $10 a week. So if we cut that, if that tax cut comes back and that cuts out of the budget that amount, I'm looking at how much else can we spend rather than cutting it. Because paying that small amount in tax, we have a lot of money in there that we could invest in ourselves. We could come back and invest in our communities, like fire trucks. Everybody I talk to, we have 40-year-old fire trucks that are going to break down on the way to save somebody. Okay, average fire truck is $500,000 for $1 billion of that dollars, just to give you an idea of how much money that is. That's 2,000 fire trucks. That's 22 fire trucks per county. That's how big that budget is, that budget surplus is. So why don't we use it to fund these things like this? Let's fund broadband. Let's fund teacher pay raises. $500 million would give each and every public school teacher in this state a $7,700 pay raise. Let's use the money before we think about giving it back, invest in ourselves, and start rebuilding what we have.
When it comes to the business personal property tax, I don't see it being cut entirely all in one chunk. What I think what would happen is something that we proposed in the House during the last session was to remove the 30% floor. And then by doing so, our plan was to actually have it so the loss of revenue from the local unit of government would have been reimbursed by the state. There was a process in place for that, so there would have been no loss. So really all we'd be doing is removing that 30% floor. And since that was a pretty simple, quick explanation for it, another thing that I'm looking to do to save our local units of government some dollars, especially as local units are looking at increasing salaries for sheriffs and other agencies as well, is I want to move our state or probation officers from county employees to state employees. The salary is already state mandated. So the state sets the salary, mandates the salary to the local units of government for those probation officers. So I just want to move that to a state employee, and that would free up those dollars from the local units of government to go towards salaries as well. And when it comes to education dollars, we did put $1.9 billion of new dollars of education in the last budget.
Thank you. So, great question. I'm all about anytime we can save taxes for regular working families, because we have been struggling hard, especially since 2010. Just struggling hard to make it. We have so many working families that are working multiple jobs. Instead of that 1 40-hour-a-week job, they are doing like a 28, 29-hour job and then a couple of part-time jobs to try to supplement their income. So anything we could do is going to be very helpful. But here's how I propose that we do that. A lot of people look at that surplus and think, oh, that's a lot of money, we should use that. I say, after serving on the Ways and Means Committee for several years, there's a lot of money that goes right out the window in the Ways and Means Committee. And I'll give you an example of one. And that is, do you know that we could do a startup school? We could say that we want to take a common school loan out, and we're going to have 200 kids join this new school. And in the fall, when those 200 kids don't show up and we have 12 kids who show up, then we could get money for all 12 kids if it's by the attendance date, which is in September. And then they're sent back out to the public schools because, yeah, we just can't make that school go. We just don't have the resources. There's no mechanism in place to claw that money back. Let me repeat that. There is no mechanism in place under the current administration to claw that money back. Now, our former state superintendent, Dr. McCormick, she's right here. She shared this with us a couple weeks ago. How many times the Attorney General was approached to try to get that money back, because many times that left and went right out of state. If we had just that money left, can you imagine what we could do for education, but also for local government if they're going to lose that money from saving these taxes for working families? That is a huge concern in the state right now. We have to firm up that budget. You know, I'm a single woman. I live by myself. I know what it's like to try to do everything on my own. And when my furnace guy told me I needed a furnace in 3 years, you know what I did? I saved for my furnace. We need to save for our furnace because we're not doing that right now. We're saving the surplus, but we are not refining our budget the way it would be. And I think that some of you would be shocked at the way some of the money goes out the window and is unaccounted for. It is unaccounted for. And that can be researched, and you can check that. Thank you very much.
Well, as you guys all know, when you pull up to the pumps, prices are going up, interest rates are going up, inflation has hit us hard and it's going to continue. The state needs to get ready for that. And I know that everybody's got ways to spend that surplus, but we can't just put it all out there and then turn around and come back and have to ask taxpayers for more money. I know from being on Delaware County Council, everything's costing more. You know, it costs us more to pave roads, it costs us more to pay our people, it costs us more. So I know, you know, people have talked about the surplus, and yeah, let's spend it, I guess, is what the talk is about, and they've all got different ways to spend the surplus, but really what the state needs to do, if they're going to reduce the taxes, is we need to tighten our belt at the state. There's a lot of money coming into the state. You wouldn't believe how much money is coming into the state there, and we're going to have to take a real look at where our spending is going and prioritize that better. You know, that's what we did to get Delaware County Council turned around. You know, get Delaware County turned around is we were watching where that money was spent and got ourselves back into a good position. When we close out this budget for Delaware County next week, we're going to be able to do a lot of things that we have been trying to do for years, and we're going to end up with a surplus that helps us pay the bills next year and not have to borrow money again for the 4th year in a row. So
Thank you. All right, now we're down to the question everybody wanted, the last one. JD, this was gonna go to you. This should be right up your alley, maybe. If not, maybe it's my fault, I'm good with that. All right, what is your position on individual property rights in regard to carbon sequestration? And how did you arrive at this position? Everybody gets, you JD, you get your 3 minutes from Ed, otherwise you'll get up and it'll be, yeah.
Well, when it comes to property rights, that's the most localized form of control. I mean, we talk about local control a lot down at the State House, and whether it be local units of government or is usually the topic that most people come to mind when they think of local control. But to me, when I look at the ultimate local control is actually the individual property rights. So if we're looking at carbon sequestration, there's different forms of it. So there's various forms, different depths. So really what we need to look at is how is that going to affect whether you're going deep into that would affect the mineral rights, or whether it's kind of the higher up, the more surface area. So not sure exactly where you're driving at with what you want to accomplish with the question here, but what I would do is work with all members of Farm Bureau landowners to see what type of balance, depending on which type of carbon sequestration bill comes up. So some of the bills that has come before the General Assembly has to do with a plant over in Terre Haute that was originally going to put carbon into the ground, and it was actually an anhydrous ammonia plant. And that it was a very deep penetration into the ground that was filling a void to where it wouldn't have any adverse effect on the surrounding landowners. So from that regard, you're looking at how is that sequestration project or plan? They're all going to be unique, is essentially what I'm getting at. The rules for carbon sequestration when it comes before the EPA, it's very costly to get the studies and the permits to do so. So each one of those processes is very unique. But really just working with the landowners around that project, see is there going to be any adverse effects? Because that's really the bottom line is once somebody is doing something that's going to directly affect what's going on their land, that's kind of where you can get into some issues you got to iron out to see what the problems are.
Get that ready to hand on. So with property rights, the old adage of your rights end where my rights begin kind of plays into all that. So I'm not, again, like JD just said, I'm not 100% certain where you're going with the carbon sequestration. But like when you're talking about property rights, I can do with my property what I want to, but we do have issues of if what I do on my property affects the others around me. If like I can't go on my property and just open dump my septic tank on my neighbor's property. There are that is against the rights of my neighbors and not have my sewage on his property. So again, I'm not sure exactly where you're going with that. I'm not familiar, and I would definitely welcome, as your representative, I would definitely welcome any sort of people coming in to talk to me and fill me in. I listen. That's what I do. I welcome anybody to come and talk to me and tell me what's going on, and then I start the problem-solving process. I start looking into what you can do, what is available, and what needs to happen, and then take action on it, what the best issue, or how best the issue would be solved. So that's anything. I don't claim to know everything. This is one I don't know much about, but I would be willing to listen and talk to you.
Can I get some more clarification on that, please?
So carbon, yeah. So part of the carbon sequestration is how it is, you know, if it's injected into the ground. And so if someone wants to inject it in the ground, how does that affect property rights, and are farmers available to participate in this on their own ground, or is it limited to, there's different things, and I think everybody's trying to figure out the path to go, and that's why we're asking your opinion on it. What do you think is the best way?
Thank you for that clarification. So I'm just a big proponent of personal property rights. I always have been. And we've had discussions in the Ag Committee about different other areas where how far underneath the property do you own as well. So it seems like this would be tapping into some of that as well. So, you know, I think that we, you know, as much as we have property rights, we have to just be very aware of what we are doing to our land as well. But then this also pulls in the conversation where we have to have stakeholders involved. And so I've seen some of the it was just a hyper-partisan issue, like in some areas, like with turbines and things like that, and with CAPOs and things like that. And so if we pull everybody into that conversation who are affected, I think we're going to glean a lot of information from that. So we may have some people who want to move that direction. We may have some people who just want to stand firm and just want to keep their ground as farmland. But I think until we intentionally reach out to constituents and seek their opinion, we are just not making that decision with enough knowledge. Too many times we get caught up down there with who's lobbying for what organization. But I will tell you, from going to events all over, when I used to travel all over District 35, it was so enlightening to be able to just talk to someone in the grocery store, or a small business, or out at a festival, and see how they felt about a certain issue, and that made it very, very easy to vote. But I think when we shut these, well, not even shut, we don't even purposely seek people's opinion. It is so important to have community forums and town halls and gather that information. That is the way that we make informed decisions as leaders. And I think that's important, even if those conversations are difficult, and even if people disagree with us, we have to still be available to do that. So, thank you.
Well, if JD didn't know where the question was going, and I'm not sure you guys know where the question is going, I'm gonna not beat a dead horse here. We've heard from down the line on that. You know, I've got a real estate background. Property rights are extremely important to me, but this is going to require us to have to sit down and have a discussion here and get everybody involved.
Okay, we get 2 minutes. His closing statement.
I think part of the confusion with this question, though, is just there's various types of carbon sequestration, whether it's that deep service sequestration or kind of the lower level, like the subsurface. I know one thing that if federal rules changed where it benefits farmers to start injecting carbon, one thing could happen is, if there's a way to start knifing in carbon like we currently knife in anhydrous ammonia, that would be a completely different set of rules than a kind of a deep penetration carbon sequestration project. So I guess that's kind of where I was just needed some guidance on where we were going with this. But so long story short, it's just going to vary depending on the type of project and community, the type of community that it's going in. So.
You want to do your closing statement?
Yeah, I will.
You get 2 minutes or less. There's cookies back there, so, you know, don't hold them up.
Well, thank you again to Farm Bureau for hosting the event this evening. I look forward to continuing to serve as your state representative given the opportunity. As always, feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions or concerns. Always available. My phone number is 765-546-2656, and that is the same cell phone number I've always had. Not changing, never will. I shouldn't say never in case something happens, you know how things are, but don't plan on ever changing it. But do ask for your vote this November 8th, again, vote for J.D. Prescott for State Representative, November 8th.
Yes, again, thank you to Farm Bureau for hosting this. It's good good for American democracy when you can get candidates next to each other and talking about issues. I've been traveling the last several months. I've been traveling this district, and it is a very large territorial district. I've been, and it's very rural. I've been in many, many, many small towns. I've attended as many commissioners and council meetings as time permits me to do. I go out and I listen. I've talked to hundreds of voters. I listen to their stories and what they tell me. I listen at the council and commissioners meetings to what's going on in the counties, and I see the issues, I hear the issues, and I want to help. I want to see what the state can do to help solve those issues. I work well with others. I've always been a team builder. I've always, in my work situations, I've been the team leader. I've built strong teams to solve IT's issues with my company. And then I just ask you to think back. I mean, in the last 12 years since the Republicans took a supermajority at the Indiana State House, have our communities improved that much? Or have they continued to decay? I think it's time for a change at the Indiana State House. I think it's time for us to start reinvesting in ourselves. Look, I come from the same groups that you do. I'm one of you. I want to help you make your situations better. And please elect me to help serve you.
I want to tell you a little bit about why I just loved being a state representative. I loved the servant leadership of it, and I loved just knocking on people's doors. And I went back to community so many times that I could remember where to park, and I could remember the stories that were told on the doorsteps. That's so important. And again, it just helped me know how to vote. But more importantly, I established a relationship with those people. It didn't matter about their party. When they called down to the State House and they needed help, I didn't look up. I didn't ask if they were a Republican or a Democrat. You know, my job as a public servant is to be able to help people. And I loved that. I loved going to the events. I loved just checking in with different constituents. I loved answering the emails, and on the way home from my long drive to Indianapolis, I would just randomly call people, hey, how are you doing? You know, how's it going up in your area? I would not back off from the emails that were maybe critical, which really there weren't that many. Maybe about guns, but I always voted that way, so it was a non-issue. So, you know, my thing is, I want to do this again, and I want to be present. I want to have a relationship with the people in this area so that you know that you have somebody in the State House who's your friend, who is going to come and see you. Now, the number one thing I always said anytime I was down there is I have to vote first, but anytime somebody visited from the district, they were the first priority, and I mean that, the first priority. I remember having a Republican doctor coming to me about an issue we were discussing, and I said, okay, tell me your talking points, and I'll tell you, but you're a Democrat. Yeah, but I'm your state representative. Okay, that's important. He was like, it doesn't work that way in Washington. No, it doesn't, but that's the way it works here. I sincerely ask for your vote for your next state senator for District 26.
Thank you again to Farm Bureau for having us out. It's been nice. I'll tell you, State Senate District 26 is a great district. when this district got redrawn with Delaware County and Randolph County. I already serve and cover Delaware County voters. I've won 3 elections in Delaware County at the top of the ballot each time. You know, people have put their trust in me, and I've worked hard for them, and I'm going to continue to work hard for the citizens of Delaware and Randolph County. My door's always open, my phone's always on. Feel free to reach out to me. A lot of you already have my cell phone number, so again, it's you know, for me, this is a family thing. It's about getting things right for families in Indiana. Especially our district, and I want to make sure that our district is represented. You know, I'm very familiar with Delaware County already, and I used to do a lot of work over in Randolph County. I've been over here a lot, and the same, we keep hearing the same thing. I mean, it's the economy, it's inflation, it's interest rates. They're affecting everything we do. I'm going to work hard for the next few weeks to be your next state senator, and I'd ask for your support and your vote on November 8th. My campaign manager's back there if you need a yard sign. Thank you, and have a good night.
I'd like to thank everybody who came, especially the people in the crowd, the people up here who made the long trip over and are taking questions, and will be in the back to take your questions, and you as well. You as well. Thank you very much. The cookie police are back there. That'll get me in trouble at home. I can see it already. So there's cookies. Obviously, there's cookies, and we're farmers, so there has to be milk. And there's water back there. And then these folks will stay around for your questions. Please feel free. And again, on behalf of Farm Bureau, thank everyone for coming. Drive safe home.
I'll point out one quick thing. Claudia in back has been doing this for years, and she said that this is her last year, so let's put a round of applause together for Claudia. She's done quite the work, putting all this together, lining everybody up, and if you came here tonight and learned something about a candidate that you may or may not have known before, you know, it's all been information. We're happy to do this as a service, and Claudia's at the heart of it. Thanks.
Where can I get a copy?